All right, good morning. How's everybody doing on this Monday morning? Just refreshing the feed and then we will get started painting. This is Paint with Lovejoy, and today's painting is going to be the Eiffel Tower. And this is a viewer request. And I'll actually be painting with both the palette knife for the background, and then we'll use some brushwork for our foliage, and then when we do the design of our Eiffel Tower. All right. So this is actually a nice one because anybody can do it. You don't need to pre-draw anything or purchase one of the traceables. So I'll walk you through the steps on drawing the Eiffel Tower. And just a little bit of what you're looking at right now on the canvas. You can see a lot of texture on it. You can see a lot of different things happening. I am reusing canvases, so you can re-gesso or repaint on top of a canvas and then do another painting on top of it. So for my first time painters or beginner painters, this is a nice way that you can just keep reusing a canvas and keep with your practice for painting. So there is a link in the description box below for re-gessoing your canvas. And let me just quickly make sure the chat is up here. There we go. So if you guys have any questions today, feel free to put it in the chat and I will address them while I'm painting. So for the Eiffel Tower, I wanted to do something a little bit different compared to so many of the step-by-step Eiffel Tower paintings out there. So I am painting with the knife for the background, and we're going to do a night scene. So I'm actually going to use purple and blue. We're going to scrape it on top of here. Very stress relieving process. Then we're going to put some really dark foliage, and then our Eiffel Tower is going to be hanging out in the center. And we'll be doing that with some yellow and white mixture because they do light up the Eiffel Tower in the evening, and it just looks really nice next to that dark background. So, again, I'm using a palette knife. There are many different shapes of palette knives. If you do not have a palette knife, you can use an old credit card, anything that's kind of a stiff, hard plastic that has an edge that you can do this type of scraping with. So don't feel like you have to buy special supplies just to kind of follow along with what I'm doing here. If you do not want to do this with a palette knife and you prefer a brush, you can definitely do this with a brush. And you'll kind of cover the same way, and then you'll put your other colors on top of it. So feel free to modify this to whatever you want based on the supplies that you have or what you want to accomplish. And if you feel like changing this up and doing sunset colors or a sky, blue sky, feel free, switch it up. And if you choose to do a blue sky or a sunset, I'd actually have you use black paint when we do the Eiffel Tower design compared to using the yellow and white that we'll be using for this video. So we're basically, this is a lot of fun, just basically scraping purple on the whole thing. And because I re-gessoed this canvas and it's already got that nice texture that we were talking about on the background, it helps for my style palette knife. And this is untraditional palette knife, this kind of scraping, and we'll be layering a few colors on here. But if you want to check out the work that I do, you can go down to lovejoycreations.com and check out my portfolio. And I scrape with this manner, but I paint in the wildlife genre. And my paintings have sometimes 100 layers of paint scraped on them before I consider them done. And it's just nice to know that with acrylic paint, you can just layer over and over and over again. So that's why this is a nice medium to work with for my beginner and first-time painters. Alright, and if you do have some spaces where the canvas is showing through, that's okay on this one. And if you are painting on a stretched canvas, I highly recommend that you carry that color over the sides, the top, and the bottom. You can do that with the knife or jump down to the brush to do it. It is a little bit easier with the brush. But having that color wrap around the edge is only to your benefit for when you hang this on the wall. If you hang it on the wall, having the color wrap around the edge just looks very aesthetically pleasing. So, all right. So I'm going to wipe that knife off. I'm going to go right into the blue. I actually really like the blue and purple color combo. And since we've already got that texture on there, it's just going to create for some really nice different combos of color, different textures that will show up. And you can choose to put this color in all over or just in a few places. I really like this color combo, so I'm going to fill the whole thing because I find it really fascinating to see this dark purple and then the dark blue and then kind of where their transparency of the student grade paint crosses and you can see both of them at the same time. So just kind of play with it and notice how the color interacts with the color underneath it. How maybe once you start doing it a little bit more and understanding your vantage point, your interpretation for colors, then you can start going, well, what's this do? Let's try this. That's really what painting and creativity is all about. Nice. And like I said, just super stress relieving, scraping paint on a canvas. All right. And now as I'm actually looking at it, I do want to go back in and fill those spots. I'm going to do probably splatter of stars after we do our Eiffel Tower. So if there's anything that you want to go back to, you can go back to either color, purple or white, and just kind of fill it in. And even putting the purple back on top of the blue looks really kind of cool. Again, just play. I try to encourage all my students, you're an adult kindergartner right now, or you're an actual kindergartner, or you're a kid painting, but just have fun, get lost kind of in the process of your own discovery of what you're doing. Okay. Alright, so that's not too bad for the background. Like I said, do what you want to do to the background, and if you need to pause the video and then pick it back up for the other elements, feel free to do that if you're catching this on the replay. Alright, so as I'm looking at quite a few of the pictures, there's one image of the Eiffel Tower that I like that's kind of a long pathway here, and then the Eiffel Tower is in the center. And then they kind of have the shrubbery coming off the edge. So we're going to be adding our shrubbery first, then we'll move into the brushwork for our Eiffel Tower. So since this is a night scene, I'm going to be mixing the green and the blue. And I am moving down to the brush. If you want to jump back up to the palette knife, go right ahead. And by mixing the green and blue, it kind of makes the blue a little bit darker, or I mean the green a little bit darker. If you do not have blue or you don't want to use blue, you can always mix a little bit of black with your green to go a little bit darker. Alright, so what we're going to do first is kind of put our horizon line on here, and then we'll kind of put the perimeter line of the foliage. So starting on that bottom left-hand corner, let's see, go up about 3 or 4 inches. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you're on a bigger canvas, maybe go up 5 or 6 inches, but you want to not quite be at a third of the way of your canvas. So basically you're going to go up a couple inches, make a little dot, go to the other side of the canvas, go up about the same amount, make another little line, and if you want to make it super easy, do the same thing in the center, and then we're going to be connecting the dots. And I do want you to apply your paint a little bit thicker, especially if you're like me using student grade paint, because we do want to cover what we had just put on the background. And it is kind of nice having that dark color already on there. So once you've got your line, your horizon line, let's go ahead and just fill this in. Get some of that paint on there. And you can see that I'm mixing my color 2 and 3 and 4 times. So don't stress about getting the exact same color each time that you need to mix it. Having a little variety in your choices is only to your benefit. Alright, and I actually, with this blue and green, it does make a very nice tealish color. Alright. I hope everybody's having a nice week, or had a nice weekend, and having a good start to their week. If you're working from home, I do know that Zoom and the other video conferencing apps are quite busy on Monday morning with our little teams checking in. So if you are catching this on the replay, have fun painting. Alright, so we've kind of got our space, our ground filled in. And again, with that blue and green, it just keeps it kind of nice and dark. And I like that this has a slightly different effect compared to the texture of the background. So again, just kind of play with it for what you like. Alright, so now I'm actually just going to grab that straight green and wipe off that paint. And now we're going to go for straight green, And we're going to kind of come to about the center position here. Doesn't have to be exactly in the center, but just a place that looks center to you. And we're going to put a line, and then we're going to angle it up. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So start at that same center point, or wherever point that you chose, and we're making a nice little angle up there. And these are the trees that are lining the pathway to get to the Eiffel Tower. So now I'm actually just going to take that direct green, because I do want it a little different from our ground, and I am applying it on here pretty thick, because my student grade paint is on the transparent side. If you are using artist grade paint, you'll have a little bit better coverage. But if you are using student grade paint like I am, or even some of the craft paint, it dries rather quickly. So apply it kind of thick so you can get some good coverage. And if you have to do 2, maybe 3 coats of it, that's okay. That's just what you have to do for your painting. So don't be afraid to adjust what you need for your creative process based on the tools that you have or based on your skill level. All right. So nice kind of definition or difference between our grass, our shrubbery up here, and then our grass down below. All right, so just before we move into doing the Eiffel Tower, we're going to do a few little quick, I guess I'd still call it wet on wet blending, but a few little blobs that we're going to place and then just kind of smear it into the green. And this gets you good practice with that wet on wet blending. So I'm going to grab a chunk of that yellow, clean the brush off really good, and literally just going to imagine that we've got some lights coming along here. So we're placing dot, 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 dot. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And remember, they're kind of staying at that angle, so they are kind of moving up. Then I want you to wipe that brush off. And again, this is just getting you good practice for what it looks like to mix your colors together. So take that brush and then just make a few little X marks on top of it. So we're just kind of smearing that yellow into that paint. And I'm not pushing too hard because I want to keep some of that yellow, but we're also imagining that it's kind of blurry, and you also get to see how quickly those colors get eaten up in other shades. Whoops, let me smooth that off. All right. So yeah, just look it over, see if we have any questions. Appreciate everybody that has jumped on earlier, and I was able to say hi through the chat. But hi to Mike and Anita and Madison. I think that's everybody. And Neva. All right. So thank you guys so much for jumping on. If you have any questions, do let me know. All right, so we're going to do one more little smear. And let's see, let's do that with the yellow again. And we're imagining that there's a little bit of a pathway here, so we're going to smear it kind of from the base of our horizon line towards the bottom of the canvas. So again, you saw how quickly that yellow got eaten up in the other green, so we're going to kind of place that, wipe that extra paint off again, and then literally we're just going to take from here and then wiggle our brush right down. And if your paint is starting to dry a little bit, like mine is, that's actually a good thing. So you can use a little bit more pressure, but just play with pulling it to where it's a little brighter up top, and then how it diffuses as it goes towards the bottom. If you did that quite a bit and your paint was still really, really wet and you lost that, just reapply. Do it one more time. Slap that yellow on there and then just pull it towards the bottom. Most of the things in art are merely suggestions and just things to follow, so don't be afraid to adjust and change what you need to for your painting. And if, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. Alright, so as we move into our Eiffel Tower, I'm going to break it down into simple little shapes for you, so don't stress. And if you do want to practice this before on a scrap sheet of paper, go right ahead and do that. Alright, so we're going to do a yellow and white mixture. I'm going to do probably about a 1-to-1 ratio. If you prefer more white or more just straight up yellow, feel free to adjust. Alright, let me pull up my little line drawing of the Eiffel Tower. There we go. Alright, so we're actually going to start at the base, at this shrubbery, And the Eiffel Tower has this nice kind of arc for where the feet are kind of landing. And we're going pretty much dead on perspective. So we're not really doing a bit of a 3D. So it's going to be kind of a flat Eiffel Tower. So I am using the small pointy brush, and you can treat it like a pencil. Use just the tip of it and light pressure. And if you have a little bit more pressure, that's okay. But remember to breathe as you do this. So we're going to create an arc going right across, and this is going to be the bottom of our Eiffel Tower. So just placing your dot, we're doing a little bit of an arc. If you find that you're holding your breath, hum something or try to breathe or exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas. All right. And then starting from the center of that area, maybe about an inch above, we're going to create a line. And then a little bit above that one, we're going to create another line. Okay, you're just creating lines. Don't think too much. Remember to breathe. All right, and let me get a few more lines on here, and then I see a few questions popping up. I will address those. So once you have your 2 lines on here, we're going to close it off, turn it into a rectangle. And don't worry about this being perfect. You can go back over it with more solid color. Right now, as you're getting your design on there, just relax. And then from the edge of this box, we're going to carry the edge over, and it is angling out a little bit. Okay, so let's see. What are some of these questions? Oh, good. I'm glad painting is never stressful with me. That's awesome. Thanks, Sonia. So let's see, another question. Do you have to use a palette knife for the background? No, you do not. And yes, you can do the wet on wet blending. It's just kind of the same thing in some of the other videos that we've done, where you kind of put your base color on, and then maybe you put your base purple on, and then you throw that blue in there while it's wet. And then I'd say let it dry, and then move on to doing the bottom area. So hopefully that answered your question. But yeah, feel free to do whatever you need. Okay, so now that we've got the base of our Eiffel Tower, we're going to kind of find that center again just a little bit. Does not have to be perfect. And we're going to go up about maybe 3 inches, and you're going to create a line, and this one's going to be smaller. It's going to be a little bit smaller as we get towards the top. And at this point, if you're realizing that maybe you made that line too high, or maybe you made it too low, if you made it too high, I want you to do a line underneath. And if you feel like you made that line too low, I want you to put that line above it. But we're doing that same little rectangle that we did here. And then before we do the perimeter lines, whatever your bottom line is here, I want you to go down just a little bit. And we're going to place another little line, and this is the second opening on the second tower of the Eiffel Tower. And then from there, okay, there we go. I think it came back through. Sorry guys, my power actually went out and it came back on. So I've had to reconnect everything. So sorry about that. All right, so let me just make sure, pull the chat back up. Wow. Definitely so many new things to check out. Sorry about that. So hopefully, yes, we're back. So I'm not quite sure where it cut out at, so I'm just going to re-explain a few quick things. And if I'm reiterating stuff that didn't get cut out, I apologize. But like I said, I don't know where the video got cut out. So we've kind of got a rectangle here for the top, for the middle section, and then I just drew a little line, went up about maybe 3 inches for the center. You don't want it quite at the top of the canvas, maybe about 2 inches below the canvas, and another little line. So I'll pick up from there for the rest of the painting. Okay, good. And I'm seeing it on the screen, so hopefully we will just continue to resume. All right. Appreciate your patience. Okay, so just grabbing, refreshing my paint. All right, so we've got our base. This is the top of our Eiffel Tower. And we're going to connect those lines again. And again, they kind of angle, so starting at the edge, moving it down here, and then starting at the edge, going back. And then we have another little square to put up here, and then the top of our Eiffel Tower. And again, we're going to go over with kind of architectural elements and cross-hatching and stuff to fill up the space. So we've just put our little box here. Now we're going to do the reverse. It has this nice little steeple, and it's basically a triangle. All right. So now we can actually go over all of this with a little bit thicker paint and some structured detail in the center. All right. So if you need to, just go over each of these lines with a little bit thicker paint, and it will be a little more bold against that background. And then we're going to be making X marks on the inside of these lines. So let's see, let's do a few little lines inside that rectangle, and we're going to kind of create the same formula all the way through. All right, and then let's see, let's make some X marks. Super simple, and as you're doing this, play with the pressure of your brush. Light pressure is going to make skinnier lines. A little bit more pressure will make fatter lines. Just a few little arcs in here. And if you have a mixture of both in your painting, totally okay. Be kind to yourself as you're going through this process, especially if this is in the beginning stages of painting. Your brain is taking in a lot of information, and it's learning each time you mix a color, each time you make a mark on your painting. Your brain is learning, so be kind to yourself while you're in the learning process. Some more X marks. If you need to, if you're finding that your hand is shaky, exhale as you touch the canvas, and then also maybe rest your forearm against the edge of the table, so that way you can kind of steady yourself, so you're not trying to isolate a muscle and hold your arm still while you're painting. All right, we'll put a few little lines inside our Eiffel Tower, and then I'm going to get the brush, and we're going to do some splattering of stars on here. All right, and a few little lines on the inside. And if you did do this with your yellow and white mixture, possibly even going back with your white in a few areas and just putting little details on there, little highlight sections. And then just X marks over these areas. And if you ended up like me to where that square got filled in, totally okay. That's just where your painting is for the moment. All right, so to do the splattering of stars, this is actually a lot of fun. We are going to take the brush, the larger brush, and I'm going to have it pretty wet with water and my color of paint. And then I'm going to use another brush to kind of hold it as the base, and then we're going to be doing this tapping method. So you do want your paint to be rather watery, so that when we hit here, it's going to splatter onto this area. Another alternative, if this type isn't working, you can actually take that brush, oops, there we go, and you kind of push it against here and make a, kind of a flicking. Some people do it with a toothbrush and kind of flick it. No matter what method you choose for this, make sure you're in a place that if you get splattered paint, it's okay to get splattered paint, because this is a messy application. So basically just getting a lot of water on my brush, grabbing some of that white paint, and if your water is a kind of color like mine is, I would recommend clean water, just so you're not contaminating the color of your stars. All right, so again, you've got quite a bit of water on here, some paint. I'm going to do this tapping method. Whoops, there we go. So you might have to realize that you do have to use a little more force. So kind of find your balance for what you need, and then if you need to grab more pigment. If you are concerned about getting any of the dots down here, you can put a piece of paper on this area to cover it. So a few little options. You can make little dots. Again, between the palette knife and even this tapping method, these are some stress relieving painting applications. And you can have as many stars as you want on your painting. All right, so if you were like me and you didn't cover this area and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't like that, you can just paint right on top of it, or just kind of find a way to work it in and nobody even knows it was there. And if somebody asks, you go, hey, I just planned that. But if you don't like that area, just go back and make your blue and your green mixture. A little more green, and just paint right on top of it. Actually, I kind of like that a little bit more. So yeah, if you want to go back, change anything, I like a little bit more of that blue showing up right here. You can take a little touch of that yellow. So it is okay that if you kind of work on a painting, then you go, oh wait, let's add something here. Just because I may be done with it in a section doesn't mean that you can't go back and work on something or change it. So, and a lot of times you make those discoveries while you're in the process of painting. So actually, let's throw a moon in here. Maybe there was something else I wanted to add to this. And I'm going to do a crescent shaped moon. So I am using that small pointy brush. And let's see, let's do one. I'm going to do basically a backwards C shape. And then just kind of clean it up a little bit. And then yeah, like I said, if you didn't want to just use your brush to make little stars, or if you want to do a specific constellation in there, you would have more control with brush and making the dots. Okay. All right, not bad. And if you even wanted to, with black paint, you could go back in and do a wireframe on top of your Eiffel Tower. You could throw some more white on there. And if you did want to do the black, I'm actually kind of inclined to do that. You just go right on top of it. Maybe let's just do the perimeter. All right, today is just one of those days. I did not do most of what I planned, and having even the computer, the power go off and shut down, just proves that in the art world and in life, you just have to go with the flow. So I was not planning on doing some of these changes, but here we are. And I actually kind of like this a little bit more with the black and tints on top of that yellow, the light whitish yellow. All right, and as you're painting at home, please send me pictures of what you paint. Send me pictures if you change it up and make it your own. But email those to me, paintwithlovejoy@gmail.com. Still, some of my most favorite emails to receive in the morning. You can tag me in social media @ or hashtag paintwithlovejoy. And jump over, check out my school, paintwithlovejoy.com. But most importantly, please keep painting and finding your creative outlets. So thanks for joining me today and dealing with a few of the little mishaps today, but having fun. And I hope you have a great day. Cheers.